So there was probably about 20 people gathered around my mum's vagina when we were being born. And my dad said, you came out to an audience and you've never really stopped since then.
And growing up with sisters, do you think that helped you understand women?
Definitely.
How did you work all of that out?
Years of therapy.
Welcome to How to Fail, the podcast that believes, as Truman Capote did, that failure is the condiment that gives success its flavour. The actor Tom Ellis was born in Cardiff and raised in Sheffield, the son of a Baptist minister. It was a religious upbringing which makes it all the more ironic that the role for which he has arguably become most famous is playing the devil incarnate in Netflix's hit series Lucifer, which ran for 6 seasons and became the most watched streaming series in the world in 2019. Ellis studied at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama and broke onto our screens as Gary in the beloved BBC One sitcom Miranda. Since then, he starred in US dramas including Players with Gina Rodriguez and Hulu's Tell Me Lies, where the showrunner is his wife, Meghan Oppenheimer. The couple welcomed a daughter via surrogate in 2023. It's a rapid ascent that shows no signs of abating. Ellis next appears in the highly anticipated film adaptation of Richard Osman's best-selling mystery novel, The Thursday Murder Club, alongside Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, and Richard E. Grant. And yet, Ellis was rejected from the first 4 drama schools he applied to. Still, some inner resolution kept him going. As he puts it, you have to get used to rejection if you're going to do it. But I had this feeling inside of me that it was going to work out. And it did. That feeling has carried me through my adult life. Stay in your lane, do your thing. It's all going to be all right. Tom Ellis, welcome to How to Fail.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. And I'm guessing as well that you grew up with the idea of there being a path, whether that was a spiritual feeling or a religious one. Did you feel and do you feel that the universe kind of has its plans for you?
I do. I mean, it's a strange one. I think, when I was a kid growing up, I used to think that it would be God and God's plan and all of those things, because that's what I essentially learned from day one. I think as I've gotten older, I've taken a step back from organised religion, but I still hold on to a sense of spirituality and a sense that there's something much bigger that we can't put our finger on, and there's no point trying to explain it.
Yes. Sorry, we've got so deep so quickly, but I think that's so interesting, because if something doesn't feel right to you, mm-hmm. have you also got more practiced at acknowledging and recognising that and changing course? Definitely.
I mean, I think I've always tried to avoid conflict. It's a big thing and it's a family trait I've learned. But as I've gotten older, I've had to face things that have been really uncomfortable. But I'm glad that I have done, because then I get back to a place of this is where I should be. And I think acknowledging when I've been in the wrong place has been hard, but it's something that I've got better at.
Gosh, well, not only, we were discussing before we started recording the fact that what we have in common is that we are both 1978 November Scorpios.
The best version.
Exactly. Big up the 1978 Scorpios. But the fact that you're a people pleaser, that's another huge thing that we have in common. And it is something that it's been a lifetime's work for me, dismantling myself from that desire to keep everyone happy.
Yeah.
And to sort of outsource your sense of self to what you think other people are feeling about
Accommodating people.
Yes.
And thinking about other people's, comfortable, whether someone's comfortable in an environment or stuff.
Let's talk about the Thursday Murder Club.
Yes.
You have described the cast as like a bucket list of all the people I've ever wanted to work with.
True.
So that must be exciting, but it must also have been very intimidating.
Oh my God, incredibly intimidating. I mean, it's funny actually, because I remember my first day on set, I was working with Dame Helen Mirren, Sir Ben Kingsley, Pierce Brosnan, and the amazing Celia Imrie. And my character in it is actually sort of a minor personality. He was a boxer, and now he does reality TV and stuff like that. So he he is a celebrity to all of those characters in it. So I come in to this scene and they're all fawning over me, and I'm thinking, if you knew what was going on in my head right now, this is role reversal.
That's so fun. Did you meet Steven Spielberg?
Wow. Do you know what? We were on set one day. Richard Osman was there for a set visit, and we were filming in this beautiful, like stately home just outside Reading. And it was a busy day. There was a big crowd scene, and lots of the cast were there. And then there was this helicopter that was flying really low overhead, and someone said, "Oh, that's Steven." And I was like, "What, Steven Spielberg?" And they were like, "Yeah, he's coming to visit today." And I was like, "What, really?" Couldn't believe it. And yeah, lo and behold, he parked his helicopter and he came up this driveway, and he came and said hello to all the, the main cast. I was going to say the four biggies. And I was stood shoulder to shoulder with David Tennant, who's also in the film. And we were there going, I can't believe it's Steven Spielberg. And then as time went on, he was doing photographs with a few people. And then we turned to each other and said, do you think anyone's going to actually introduce us to him? And no one did.
Oh, no.
So he kind of did his visit and then he left. And we both were a bit quiet. And the next day we came in and I said, David, I was so disappointed about yesterday. And he went, so was I.
Oh. So Steven Spielberg is a producer. He's the one who produced it.
Yeah, so Amblin Entertainment, which is his production company, they're the people that bought the rights to the books before the books were published, actually. And yeah, they are making them into big Hollywood movies with Chris Columbus directing.
Now, I mentioned in the introduction that your wife, Meghan, is the showrunner of Tell Me Lies. Mm-hmm. Now, she's developing or has developed a new show called Second Wife, starring you, and she happens to be your second wife.
Indeed.
Now, am I drawing the right conclusion that it might be loosely based? I'm also a second wife.
Right.
Actually, I've been a second wife twice over.
Oh.
Yeah, so if she wants to talk to me. Is it loosely based on that experience? Because I'm riveted by it and I can't wait to watch it.
It is. It's based on, I mean, it is that classic thing of, we want to write something that we know about. And I think there's lots of, nuances about being a step parent, for example. And being a parent who has children that goes into another marriage where you don't have children. And, there are so many things that happen within that and so many feelings that you go through that while you're going through them, a lot of the time you feel like you're the only person that's ever experienced this. And then, of course, as time goes on, you start talking to people and realize that it's a very shared experience.
I can't wait to watch it, as I said. And I do think you're so right. When you are particularly a step parent, it's a story that you can't share without also taking into consideration the people that you're sharing it about.
Yes.
So my story as a step parent is not just mine.
Yes.
And I'm very protective of the fact that it involves other people. Yeah. And so that's why it often feels like you are just the only one experiencing it, because there are so few stories about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I would love to talk to you, if you don't mind, about surrogacy, because I'm someone who went through a loss of fertility treatment unsuccessfully for very many years. And so I salute couples who are brave enough to do what you did.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I can't even imagine the emotional complexities that you went through. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that and about that experience to get your lovely Dolly.
Lovely Dolly. Well, I think we should start with Lovely Dolly because I'm a parent of 4 children now, or one of them is an adult, and all my children have been delivered in different ways. But I think the end game is every parent just wants to have a healthy child at the end of it, and how you get there. I think lots of people have opinions about that. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And I think, surrogacy is a really viable option for people where it's difficult to do it if you don't have other options. And it might seem very alien to people that have not done it, but it became its own thing. We became very friendly with our surrogate. She was incredible. Her and her husband, were fantastic, especially, when Dolly was actually being born. And it seems like a very sort of strange relationship if you're not part of it. But when you are, it makes complete sense. So Yeah, I don't know. Childbirth and being a parent comes with lots of opinions from people. And I've been happier in life when I've closed my ears off to those opinions, basically.
It's a beautiful end to that story. And Dolly's also a Scorpio.
She is indeed.
Well done,
We've
Matt.
got another one.
Well done for the timing. Okay, let's get on to your failures. So your first failure is your failure at being a sportsman.
Yeah.
What kind of sports were you into?
All sport. I was
Okay.
obsessed, and I still am obsessed with all sport. Football, obviously, when you're a kid, I think certainly in this country, that's the main one, isn't it? It's the everyman sport, and everyone dreams of being a footballer. And everyone plays it. It's such an easy game to kind of like put a couple of sweaters down, and I think it's something that I was pretty decent as well. Not just the football, but like cricket, rugby. I was very able. But I was never quite good enough to pursue it. And it was frustrating. And I think one of the main reasons that happened, and I was sort of resentful for it my whole sort of childhood, was because I grew up in the church. And that meant that on Sundays, I had to go to church. And those were the days when extracurricular clubs, sports clubs, tended to happen for kids. And so I didn't have that outlet. And so I was never able to really truly hone my skills outside of school. And subsequently, I kind of realised maybe when I was about 14 or 15 that dream was never going to happen.
How interesting. And so what's it like when I say your father was a Baptist minister? What's that like?
I mean, I look back on it now, and I'm really, appreciative of it. As I say, at the time growing up, it got in the way of me wanting to do the things I really wanted to do. I appreciate it now for so many things. It's quite strange when you're the preacher's kid, or a PK as we used to call ourselves, because you're almost like a little minor celebrity. Like on a Sunday, my dad is like the main celebrity, and everyone wants to talk to him, everyone wants to impress him, everyone wants to have their moment with him. And then I would sort of, after church, be speaking to everybody. In a weird sort of way, it sort of honed my social skills. Again, didn't appreciate that until I left, and lived on my own and became an adult. It set me up for lots of good things in my life, but at the time I was so resentful.
You've got 3 sisters. One of them is a twin.
Yeah.
Tell me about being a twin.
Well, again, I don't know any different.
You were the heaviest twins on record when you were born, weren't you?
My sister and I were on the front page of the South Wales Echo at 2 days old with the headline Record Breakers.
Honestly, you should be so proud.
I was so proud. I was 9 pounds 3 ounces, and my sister was 7 pounds 5 ounces.
Your mum carrying around just like 17 pounds.
Yeah, plus all the fluid and everything else. So it was like crazy.
My gosh.
And it was at the University of Hospital Wales in Cardiff. So this is why my dad thinks I became an actor, because basically when we were born, news had got around to these medical students that these massive twins were going to be born. So there was probably about 20 people gathered around my mum's vagina when we were being born. And my dad said, you came out to an audience and you've never really stopped since then.
Oh my goodness. What does your sister do?
My sister is a head teacher at primary school.
Is she?
Yeah.
Which is so interesting, because that's also, I imagine, a part of that. You can see the connection between minister, head teacher, actor.
There's a performative element to all of it. You have to be comfortable, speaking in front of people or putting on a persona to speak in front of people, for sure.
Yeah. Was your mum okay after this?
My mum was fine. And the weird thing is that she had us naturally.
Oh my gosh.
Which just wouldn't happen these days.
Hero.
And my sister was first and she was breech, so that wouldn't happen. I mean, it's bonkers to think about it.
Yeah. I know that it's probably very annoying as a twin to get asked about being a twin, and you probably get asked this all the time.
Go on.
Can you guess what I'm going to ask?
Do we have similar thoughts? Do we have that telepathy?
Yeah. If something's happening, can you feel it?
We don't have that. And I wonder whether that is something that happens with identical twins, because they've come from the same egg that's split, whereas we were separate eggs that just happened to share. We were wombies, as I like to call it.
Womb mates.
Womb mates.
And growing up with sisters, do you think that helped you understand women?
Definitely. Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. And to the point where, I had friends that grew up just with boys, and they would struggle, having platonic friendships with girls, because they couldn't think about girls other than, the opposite sex, and thinking about it from that point of view. And I just never really had that obstacle. Everyone was the same. And, it was certainly advantageous when I was a teenager and my sisters would bring their friends home, and I got to sort of, witness and be part of the world that other people would come to school going, I wonder what it is they talk about. I wonder how to be. It was just a very natural thing for me.
I'm going to come back to the sport, but before we do, I'm very interested in how people pleasing plays out later in life. So as I mentioned, I think I really identify with that categorization, and it held me back in my romantic relationships in a way I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't know who I was.
Right.
I was so embedded in the idea of trying to please my partner that I ended up, just losing touch with my own needs, wants, and desires. Did you have any of that experience in your romantic relationships?
No, for sure. I mean, that really resonates with me, actually. I think because I came from a good upbringing, should we say, I felt I had a sort of savior complex a little bit as well, where I felt, I've got nothing bad in my life and I can only offer you good things. And so I would gravitate towards people that maybe hadn't had such a great upbringing and feel like I really had something to offer. And I look back at it now and think, God, I was such an idiot to be like that. But it does come out of that thing to want someone, I want you to like me, is a voice in my head all the time. In any environment I go into. If I'm at work at the moment and someone is, deemed difficult or something like that, I see that as a challenge to make them, to want them to like me.
Yeah.
And it is a good attribute in certain environments, but I think you really have to look after your heart when you're like that, because you can, as I, alluded to before, I think you open yourself up to people taking advantage of that sometimes as well. And if you're in a place where you're accommodating someone who's very forthright and very adamant about things and whatever, it can diminish you somewhat, and you can make yourself small without realizing it. And then before you know it, you've really lost a sense of self and you feel a bit lost.
How did you work all of that out?
Years of therapy.
Yes, ditto.
I mean, I've had therapy, on and off throughout my adult life. It's come at times where something big has happened and I feel like I've had to do it. And that actually, from that, I've realised that it's better just to continually talk about oneself in an environment where you're not, annoying people. You're paying someone to listen to you talk about yourself. But I think, through therapy, I've learned that you're just basically asking someone to ask you the questions that you're scared to ask yourself, because you probably know the answers already.
What do you think? This might be too personal, so don't feel free not to answer it. What do you think is the scariest question you've ever been asked?
The scariest question. I don't know if it's a question so much as a kind of. It's more about admitting stuff to oneself, and I think getting out of your own way to do that is really important. And you have to lose your ego. You have to be humble, and you have to want to try and be better, I guess. And my main thing is that I don't want to repeat mistakes. And I want to be aware as to why I've done something. Why did I behave like that? What was going on? What was I thinking? Why was I thinking that way? Because I can recognize when I'm not being myself. I can recognize when I've drifted too far away from it. But it's time. It's getting old. It's having children. It's lots of things, put stuff in perspective.
We'll come back to being an actor in a second. The sportsman failure. What do you think it taught you, letting go of that dream? Because it is, especially as a teenager, it is quite profound thinking to yourself, I'm not going to be good enough, so I need to let that go.
What I did was that I decided, well, if I can't do that, I'd like to do something to do with that. So I was really on a path of wanting to work in like physiotherapy and sports injuries. I thought, if I can't run on the pitch as a player, at least I can run on the pitch with the magic sponge. So I think that was how I was sort of channeling that disappointment, basically. It was weird because I stumbled across acting at like the age of 17. So I'd really spent most of my school years never doing that. You know, it wasn't part of my life. And it was sport. I guess stumbling across acting was the real point of like, okay, this is what I should be doing.
And you stumbled across it because of a teacher, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, my old teacher, Claire Pender, who I'm still really good friends with, actually. I was doing A-levels and I was doing sports science, history and English. And I did a couple of weeks of the history course, and it wasn't a period of history that I was that into. And I just wasn't enjoying it. So I didn't really know what to do. And I went to my sixth form tutors and said, I'm going to drop history. And they said, well, you have to do something else. And I didn't know what. And then Claire had been my English teacher previously in school. And she came to me like in a nervous kind of excitement and said, I hear you're looking for a third A-level. I said, yeah. She said, I'm running the theatre studies course. And I've got 12 girls and 1 boy. I really need boys. And I went, how many girls? And completely the wrong motivation to do something. But I said, yeah, I'll come along. And you know, literally within like 2 or 3 lessons, I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. And as that sort of year progressed, there was a school play. She cast me in the lead of that. And we did that school play. And another friend of mine whose mum used to be an actress came to see it. She called me the next day and said, I saw you in the play last night. I really think you should think about doing this. And I told my teacher that. And she said, well, I think you should think about doing this as well. And so at the next parents' evening, she convinced my parents that I should audition for drama school.
And we will talk more about drama school because it pertains to one of your failures. Mm-hmm. But if you'll indulge me and my listeners, because we've had Miranda on this podcast before and she is beloved, getting that role as Gary, what was that whole experience like for you being in Miranda?
Ultimately it was amazing. I'll never forget being sent the script. I didn't know who Miranda was at the time. And she wasn't, people knew her in the comedy world, but she wasn't particularly known at home at that point in time. And I got sent this script, and at the time it was called Miranda Hart's Joke Shop, and it was a pilot script. And because I didn't know who she was, I didn't know how she delivered her lines or anything like that. I was reading this script thinking, what on earth is this? I think it's funny. I can't work it out. But I was, my interest was piqued. So I went to the audition and Miranda was there. And so she read the scenes with me. And it was during that process I was thinking, oh my God, this woman's hilarious. This suddenly all makes sense. And I think I know what I would do with this for Gary. And we just had a really lovely meeting and we did the pilot. And I didn't know what to expect after the pilot. And I watched it back and it came out really well. And then we got commissioned as this tiny little show on BBC Two, and I think it was the first time that I'd done a job where I noticed people coming up to me afterwards, going, "Oh, I've seen this thing," and I didn't know at the time whether it was going to be received well or not because it was really against the grain of how comedy was going. But it was just amazing that people responded in the way that they did.
And do they still, when you come back to London? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I either get Gary or Lucifer in the street. That's okay.
Just people shouting that at you. Gary! Lucifer. Yeah. Lucifer, Gary. Yeah. Okay. Your second failure is that you failed at your medical for your US green card.
Oh,
I can't wait to hear this story.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, when I was 7 years old, I fell off my bike. And my mum was a music teacher, and I remember she was doing a piano lesson at the time, so she couldn't tend to me. So my elder sister did, and I grazed my knee, and she had to put TCP on it and put a plaster on it. And I passed out. And the first time, never happened to me before. I felt funny, passed out. I remember coming round, and my sister was over me going, "Oh my God!" And my mum ran running in from the piano lesson. And that was the first time of many times in my life that I passed out at like the sight of blood or having some sort of medical procedure, having my blood taken or an injection or whatever. And I sort of lived with that my whole life, being told I was a bit of a wuss and, oh, Tom, you're going to pass out, you have to lie down and all of these things. And at my medical for my US green card, they had to take blood. And before that, I'd filled out a form that said, have you ever suffered from, and you always say no to these things. Have you ever suffered from this? No. Fainting, dizziness, no, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the doctor then takes my blood, starts asking me questions, and I can feel it happening. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I think I'm about to, and I was out. And I came round and the doctor was panicking and basically they sorted me out. I don't know if you've ever fainted?
Yes,
when you come round from a faint, you're awful. Like sweaty, like don't know where you are. Just it's horrible, and it takes a bit of time to get your shit together, basically. But when I finally got together, she went, "Okay, I'm going to have to fail you." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Because you said all these things on your form, and you've just displayed to me that you are prone to fainting." So I'm going to defer this, and you have to get neurological tests.
Oh my gosh!
So I had to, but I ended up going back 6 months later and passing it. But
did you go for neurological tests?
I went for neurological. Everything was fine.
It is that you're just a wuss.
Here's the thing. Kidding. So that is the UK NHS version of my ailment.
Okay, wussness.
I now have lived in the States for a while, and I was explaining this to a doctor in the States, because they'd asked me to come in to have some blood taken. And they said, have you ever taken anything for that? And I was like, no one has ever offered me anything for it. What are you talking about? And they said, well, what you're describing to me is a condition called Vasovagal. And it's basically to do with your vagal nerve and to do with your nervous system. And essentially it's a panic attack. It's a form of panic attack. And it's your body deciding something is really bad and your nervous system shuts down and you go into fight or flight. And so that's why you pass out, because it's protecting you. For whatever reason, blood, injections, medical stuff causes that reaction in me. And this doctor said, if you were to take like an anti-anxiety medication before you do these things, it will probably switch off that side of your nervous system and it won't happen. So I said, I'm willing to give it a shot. And I came in the following week to have my bloods taken, having taken one of these things beforehand, and I was absolutely fine.
So, so you've got your green card now.
I'm now actually a US citizen, because that was 15 years ago.
Do you like being a US citizen?
I think I've become a US citizen at the worst possible time, unfortunately. I love the States. I've got so many friends. I've got family there now, obviously. It is a strange time to be a US citizen. I'm terrified of the new administration and what they're going to do. And I feel like whereas in 2016, there was a real sort of active response as to how people felt about Trump being in power, this time around, it feels like everyone's gone quiet. It feels very passive. And while it's passive, all this stuff is happening. And that is terrifying, because I mean, it hopefully will only be 4 years. If he has his way, I think he'll probably try and change the system and be there as long as he can be.
And how does it feel being in LA specifically? Because LA and California has always been seen as its own particular enclave.
Yeah.
And that must be nice in some ways, but also weird in others.
I mean, it is. I think, people will say this about the States. The two coasts think very differently to everyone else in the middle. And there is a generic truth to that. I think the thing that's shocking for me this time round is that a lot of people secretly voted for Trump last time. This time, they've not been so secretive about it. And even in California, I'm shocked about the amount of people that, even if they are traditionally Republican, I would hope that they would have enough common sense to realise that he isn't. And that's a very different thing that you're signing up for. But I think, unfortunately, money talks in the States. It very much is, it is the currency, but it also is the currency of how people value life, and people are prone to looking after number one first there. And the sense of social conscience, I don't think exists in the way that we know it. And that's quite worrying.
Have you spoken to Meghan about not always living there?
Yes, we have. I mean, we've talked about it, but, 50% of America doesn't like Trump, at least 50%. And Trump doesn't represent America. He represents a certain type, and he represents commerce, and he represents business and the worst things that come with that. But I don't think he represents American people. And I think that to just leave a place because you don't like the ruler, if it's a democratic place and there is an opportunity to have your say, then I think just upping, to up sticks and leave, I think would be the wrong thing to do. I think we need to spend the next few years like regrouping, gathering proper opposition, and going again in 3.5 years and properly getting to the end of this.
Yes, I salute you in that endeavour.
It's a very strange time.
Will you talk to me a little bit about Meghan? What's it like working with your wife? I mean, I guess you worked with her before she was your wife. Did you?
I did, yeah. We met. We didn't meet at work. We met outside of work. But I did. I worked on a show of hers a few years ago called Queen America. And then I worked on Tell Me Lies last year. I love working with her. I mean, she is so brilliant at what she does. She's so intelligent, emotionally intelligent, but also intelligent from a performative point of view, because she used to be, when she was growing up, she used to be an actor. And so the way in which she can communicate with actors is really quite special, I think. And the way she can communicate from page to actor is a skill that, is few and far between, I have to say. There's not many directors that can do that well. And we have a huge amount of respect for each other outside of loving each other. A lot of people would think that working on a show like Tell Me Lies that I did last year with her, which is a show about sexual toxicity, and there's, very explicit scenes within it. I think a lot of people would think, isn't that strange that you're doing that and your wife is like sitting there watching it, which I can appreciate. But actually it wasn't. I felt safe doing that. And I felt safe because she is really, really good at separating church and state. We buzz off each other in terms of creativity. But I also I defer to her on lots of things because I think she's super intelligent, basically.
Yeah. And is it a relationship where you feel fully accepted, flaws and all? Because again, I'm just superimposing my personal experience. That I think, again, the people-pleasing piece for me was trying to sort of manage someone's opinion of me, which obviously you can't really manage. And I was trying to present myself as being better than I was. I was trying to present myself as being perfect, which obviously is impossible because no one's perfect and perfect is boring. And now I feel so lucky that I'm in a relationship where the imperfections are part of why he loves me.
I think I couldn't have said it any better, to be honest. I met Meghan at a time where it was impossible for me to hide my imperfections. And I was in a place where I was, I would say, happy to talk about my faults, but I was just open about talking about the fact I wasn't perfect and acknowledging that and wanting to be better and wanting something better. And, realizing all of my flaws, and that I won't always make the right decision and all of those things. And similarly, Meghan was in a place like that too, where, she's got lots and lots of things that are not perfect. But I think what we love about each other is our imperfections. And I think that is a very different place to where I've been before in life.
And why did you get to that place where you could finally just talk about it?
Because life hadn't gone how I thought it would, basically. I was out of a marriage that didn't work. And I think you learn a lot through that process, and you have to go through a lot of soul searching. and you have to kind of be very honest with yourself. And, out of that hardship, I was a much, I guess, more resilient, stronger person. But also, I was much more open to being vulnerable. And I cry so much more than I used to. I think that again, talking about being younger, I was obsessed with that notion of the perfect life. My mum and dad married very young. My eldest sister married very young, still with her husband. My twin sister still with her husband. I was sort of surrounded by this notion of how it should be. And when it didn't work out like that, I realised I still existed and breathed, and I still was a person. I still had things to offer. But it was, I had to be open and honest about my failings in order to move forward.
Thank you for sharing that. And again, I relate to so much of it. And I went through a divorce, as I mentioned, but I didn't have children with my ex-husband. So I know how much more nuanced and complicated it is if you do have kids. And I think you said something really beautiful at the beginning of this episode about how if a relationship ends, that doesn't make it a failure.
Yeah.
That actually, as you've just described, you learn so much and you can still be in relationship with that relationship, even though it's past, because you're still learning from it and you still have your gorgeous kids and all of that. But that's slightly different, I think, from regretting. Do you regret anything? How do you feel about regret?
I think it's easy to say you regret things, but actually, no, I don't. I don't regret it. I mean, I wish it had been easier. I wish things had been easier sometimes in life, but I don't regret anything because I think that every time I made a choice or decided something or felt the way I felt, that's how I was feeling at the time. I wasn't pretending. I wasn't, I'm sure, when you got married the first time, you thought that was it, that's it for life. But I went into everything with great intentions. And so, no, I don't have regrets.
Your final failure is your failure at finances as a student.
Oh, God.
So now we're going back a bit. So Claire Pender has got you into drama.
Yeah.
And you have applied to drama schools. You got rejected from 4, but you kept on going. And now you're at drama school. And is this when you're failing at finances?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other thing about growing up in the church is that we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't have parents that could support me through college and stuff. So I had to get loans, and I think I was the last year of getting a government grant to pay for my fees.
Yes, because we're the same vintage.
Right, exactly, same vintage.
Yeah, it was tuition fees.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had to get student loans for living, but my fees were paid for, thankfully. So it was the first time in my life that I'd been given an overdraft. It was the first time in my life that when the loan came in, I had a whack of money in my account. And it was the first time in my life that I'd lived away from home. And it was the perfect storm, basically, of how it was like Brewster's Millions, but without millions. I basically, and I was 18 years old and I loved what I was doing, but I loved going out. I loved going to the pub, loved drinking, socializing, all of it. And that first, a lot of my friends were going to university, and going to university is very different to going to drama school. You go to university, you're in a few days a week for lectures, and the rest of the time is yours. I had to be in every day, 9 till 6, and longer than that if we were rehearsing something. And you're expected to be incredibly disciplined and all of those things. And I wasn't that good in my first year. I spent all my money, all my overdrafts, my loans. I just, I remember having zero money at all to buy food, and I was living off a can of baked beans every 2 days or something like that. And I at the end of my first year, I had a £1,500 overdraft, which back then was a lot. And I'd spent all of my loan, and I had to be in Sheffield for 10 weeks over the summer. And the bank said, we can't give you any more overdraft facility. We can't do anything until you've paid this all back. So for 10 weeks, I did 3 jobs. I was working full-time on a building site. I was working in the evenings in a pub. And then I worked at my old job at Tesco's doing the fruit and veg on a Saturday and a Sunday. And spent that entire time paying it all back, but also realising that I never, ever wanted to do that again. And I needed to buck my ideas up. And it totally changed my attitude at drama school. Because I think towards the end of the year, I'd had a meeting with one of the teachers there, and they said, "You've missed so many classes. You're on the precipice of being thrown out." And that, combined with my financial skills, I realised that I needed to do something. And that whole summer became a sort of a humbling process of, you can't allow this to happen. You've been given this opportunity. You've worked so hard for it. You need to buck your ideas up. So, I decided I don't ever want to be a full-time barman. I don't ever want to be a builder. And I don't ever, want to work in Tesco's full-time. I want to be an actor. And I went back with a fresh bank balance, spent £50 a week. That was my budget. And became one of the top students at drama school.
Well done.
Yeah.
What a turnaround.
I know.
What were you doing with fruit and veg exactly?
Oh, just produce, just stocking the produce.
You were just stocking it?
Yes. But it was particularly, you either did that or you did the shop floor, which was the other, other groceries and stuff. But if you did fruit and veg, that was just your spot. And you had to kind of like rotate the fruit, make sure all the stuff that was about to go out of date was at the front, all of that sort of stuff.
What's the most difficult fruit or veg to stack?
Good question.
This is where I ask the questions that really count.
Oh, I don't know. Probably the one that is also the most comedic for me, which is the butternut squash.
The butternut squash, okay, yes, because it's got quite a smooth, slippy surface.
It does, and yes, it doesn't always fit together like pieces of jigsaw.
Yeah, okay. When you see a butternut squash now, does it sort of trigger you?
It does trigger me, and also I can't help but pick it up, hold it somewhere around my midriff, and shout across to my wife and say, "Do we need one of these, babe?"
You got your club card.
Yeah.
That kind of glimpse that you had into financial precariousness, has that stayed with you in any way? Like, do you still feel? Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I'm very careful, or try to be. I have a lot of outgoings as an adult with several children and stuff. It sort of money just disappears these days. But no, I've always been mindful of. I've never been frivolous, really, and I certainly don't go out anywhere near as much as I used to.
Do you like being a dad?
I love being a dad.
What do you think is the most important thing that being a dad to 4 different children of 4 different ages? What's the most important thing it's taught you? That
love will conquer many, many things, and unconditional love is so powerful. And I think is when you have children, that is the one source in life where true unconditional love comes from. And so it's valuable, and you want to cherish it. And nothing makes me happier than laughing with my children. I remember at certain times in their life, I have laughed more with them, and from a place where I don't laugh about other things. I think that sort of true connection and that true sense of knowing someone like to the depth of their soul is something that comes with being a parent. And it's kind of untouchable.
Gorgeous. Seamless link now to talk about cats, just before we close this part. Yeah. Because that's another thing that we have in common.
Oh, really?
Obsession with cats.
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily my obsession. It's an obsession that I have inherited through my wife.
Well, I love the sound of Meghan. You have 2 cats, Cain and Abel.
We do, yeah.
Okay, but I've seen loads of pictures of you posing with cats.
Well, we work with a cat charity,
right? That would be why.
And basically, we've done a lot of fostering of kittens and cats over the years, as well.
Stop it!
Yeah.
So, do you like cats?
I do now.
Okay, now. Okay.
Well, I grew up. It's funny, isn't it? You have to be dog or cat. You can't be both.
I know. Silly.
I grew up with dogs, and my family are very much dog family. And so I was always taught to be suspicious of cats, and didn't have a lot of time for them. But through Meghan, I've realised that they're just quite wonderful creatures. getting, some kind of affection from your cat is one of the most rewarding things in the world.
Yes.
Again, being a people pleaser and being a cat owner are two things that don't really work.
I was about to say, it's actually really great therapy for someone who needs approval.
Yes.
I'm talking about myself here.
Yeah.
It's so good because there's just nothing you can do to control the approval or otherwise of your cat.
Not at all. They're completely of their own mind, and they can make you feel wonderful, but they can also make you feel just like terrible and needy. But their is that they are they can't believe that we've brought this little baby into the house, and they still can't handle it. They don't like Dolly at all.
Oh no!
Yet.
Does Dolly like them?
Oh, Dolly loves them.
Oh,
one of her first words has been kitty.
Oh my gosh!
And the game that happens every morning in the house is that the cats will be up. We'll go downstairs when Dolly wakes up. She'll see them, run towards them, get about a foot away, and then they'll run away and disappear under our bed until she goes to bed at night.
Well, you know what's great is that she's growing up not to be a people or a cat pleaser.
That's true.
So she'll grow up with her own sense of self and validation and identity and all of that. Tom Ellis, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on How to Fail. Please do follow How to Fail to get new episodes as they land on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tell all your friends. This is an Elizabeth Day and Sony Music Entertainment original podcast. Thank you so much for listening.